Sydney boxer Billy Dib has had 54 professional fights, and in 2011 he won the IBF featherweight world title. But today, as one of the true stars of his generation in the sport, he finds himself in a fight for his life after being diagnosed with an aggressive form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer. And Billy Dib, I'm pleased to say, is here joining me today. It's so good to see you, Billy. I was thinking about your story and the story of your family, your brothers, and all the success that is around the Dib family, this little family that came from Western Sydney. You must be so proud of the journey that you and all of them have been on.
Definitely, man. It's been an amazing journey, and you know, with the fact that my book's coming out very soon, is I've been able to read back on some of the great things that I've achieved in boxing and just some of the things that I've been through, and it's definitely been quite a journey and an enjoyable one, to be honest.
We'll talk about the fight that you're in, obviously, shortly, but I just want to get some background for those watching and listening, the Billy Dib story, where you found boxing and why you found boxing and why you threw yourself so hard into it. What was your childhood like, and when did you discover the sport?
My childhood was pretty cool, to be honest with you. You know, I remember, you know, growing up in Engadine with my brothers and my sister, and it was a cool time, but that all changed once I went to school. Once I started going to school and getting bullied at school and picked on, and days that I'd get spat at and, you know, pushed around and things like that was pretty tough, you know. And I'd come home and ask Dad if, you know, I could have the next day off because I was just had enough, you know. But my father had this thing about, let's kill him with kindness, you know, just kill him with kindness, keep turning up and just keep being you, you'll be all right, you know. And in the end, when things didn't change, Dad decided to put us in some after-school sports, and so we did a bit of basketball and rugby league, and it was just one day at the football field that I ended up finding boxing by accident, you know. Like, just growing up as a kid, me and my brothers were so, you know, connected to this Rocky series. You know, we loved the Rocky movies, and Dad used to have a convenience store and he used to sell the Rocky gloves in the store. So me and my brothers would often put on the gloves and fight each other and things like that, and then Mum would come in and break it up, and we'd get into a little bit of trouble. But then in the end, at the footy field, it was Mr. Carpenter who was the trainer, and he was one who discovered this boxing thing, because he threw out some mitts and some pads, and he said, today we're going to do a bit of boxercise. And I just picked up a pair of gloves and started having a bit of fun with a mate, and he seen me hit the pads and he was like, have you ever boxed before? And I was like, no, but I have watched loads of Rocky movies. That's exactly how it all went down. And he basically said, look, I think you found something, you know. I think you should definitely go to the Sutherland PCY and maybe take up an amateur career in boxing. So the next thing was to try to convince Dad how, you know, that I needed to box to get better at footy. So I told my dad, because my dad was a huge Mal Meninga fan back in the days. I said, Dad, if you want me to be the next Mal Meninga, you need to send me to the Sutherland PCY to do a bit of boxing. Because, you know, growing up in a household with 5 other brothers, we fought a lot, so Dad wasn't going to give me the upper hand by putting me in some boxing lessons. But if it was to progress my footy career, then Dad would definitely help.
Incredible. We'll talk about where you went from there, but the success your brothers have had as well, it's a testament to your father and your parents and your family.
Yeah, definitely. Look, my dad's biggest thing was that he just wanted to make sure that every one of us would grow up and do the right thing on the right side of the law. That was my dad. My dad always was so, you know, adamant that, you know, we're gonna stay on the right side of the law, guys, you know. So then now, thankfully, I've got an amazing family of brothers who are doing great things. You know, my brothers, Nasser and Muhammad, had got this amazing Providorian company. And then you got my brother Emad, who owns an amazing operation through BMW and Porsche and all those things, doing detailing and that. And then my brother Jihad, who's a politician, my sister, who's like a beautician, and then my younger brother Yusuf, who's embarking on a boxing career. You know, he's 17-0 now and on the verge of doing something as well.
I mentioned your IBF world title. Must seem like a long time ago now, but must still feel incredible to know that you'll forever be a world champion.
Yeah, I mean, it's something growing up as a kid, you know, that's something that I dreamed of. And I'm sure there's a lot of fighters out there who dream of holding a world title, but, you know, I was lucky enough to win the IBO world title and then go on to win a more legitimate world title in the IBF and basically solidify myself and, you know, my place in the history of boxing. And to be mentioned alongside some of the greats like Jeff Fennick, Johnny Famechon as the only IBF champions at that weight is something special to me. And also the fact that Prince Nassim Hamed was my childhood hero and he was the IBF featherweight world champion in 1997 when he knocked out Tum Boom Boom Johnson. And then you look down the road, and then 2011, Billy Dib captures the IBF featherweight world title. It's just a moment in my life that I'll never forget, and that's something that'll be with me forever.
You mentioned Prince Nazim, but he's one of many superstars that have been dotted along your journey. You've come in contact with a lot of those sorts of people. How do you look back on all those interactions?
Oh, it was just amazing, you know, a young kid from Engadine who had big dreams. That's what it was all about. I had these big dreams and aspirations, and I just wanted to be at the top of the mountain. You know, I remember being a kid, and anyone and everyone that was around me, I'd tell them that I was going to be champion of the world. And some believed me and some didn't, you know, but I was so adamant that I'd be champion. And when I lost my opportunity to win the WBO world title in 2008, I went to Mecca in the holy city of Mecca, and I made some serious supplication and dua, and I asked God to guide me to somebody to take me to a world title, and God guided me to Billy Hussein, who then guided me to this major opportunity, you know, and just put all the right people around me, Mike Altamura, Mike Carianis, my brother Emad. We had the most amazing team, Adam Huda, and then we eventually got to this IBF world title, and you know, everything that could go right went right on that night, and I won that world title like easily, and it was probably the greatest moment of my life besides watching my son being born.
Billy, how are you feeling today?
Today's a good day, you know, like it's no secret I've got cancer, and you have good days and you have bad days, but today has been a good day. I woke up this morning feeling pretty good, and you know, I'm in a happy place right now.
I haven't seen you in the flesh since the week that you ended up going to hospital and they started the process of figuring out what was going on. Can you just tell us what happened?
Mate, it was just, I found this thing by sheer accident. You know, the doctor said to me, his name was Dr. Sanjay, he said, how have you even found this? What have you been doing? And I said, look, I'm a professional fighter, you know, and I've been in the gym training, and I said I was sparring one of the kids in the gym and he hit me with a body shot, and I felt a pain that I've never felt before. I said it didn't win me and it didn't knock me down or anything like that, but I felt this really sharp pain in my stomach. And so when I went home, I said to my wife, I said, Barry, I think there's something wrong with my stomach. And she was very concerned right away and pretty much said, listen, why don't you go to the hospital? Well, I said to her that I was going to try to sleep it off and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Well, that night was probably one of the worst nights of my life. I just was struggling all night, and then in the morning, Barry had took my son to a swimming lesson, so I contacted her and said, listen, do not be alarmed, but I'm going to the hospital. I'm not in a good way, and I'm not sure what's wrong, but something is wrong. So I made my way to Canterbury Hospital, and the way they treated me with such neglect was just horrifying. They didn't take me seriously and basically just injected me with morphine to try to mask the pain, which did work. It did work. I'll give them credit for that. It worked. And then they pretty much sent me on my way. I went back home. They didn't really run any tests. They just did a blood test and said, oh, nothing showed up. Well, that night was, again, another night from hell, and I was in excruciating pain, and I thought there's no way that I'll make it out of tonight. You know, and my wife got me some endone to try to help with the pain, and that helped me sleep. And then when I woke up in the morning, I asked my wife to take me to my mother and father's place because I couldn't drive. And when I got there, I said to my mum, I said, Mum, I won't see tonight. I'll be dead by the end of the night. Please help me, you know. So my sister was pretty upset and distraught, so she contacted the ambulance again, and they asked her, is your brother vaccinated? Is there anyone in the house with COVID and whatever? And I was so fed up because it's the same question over and over. You know, I'm vaccinated and I don't have COVID. I'm sick, I'm dying. Somebody help me, please. And told my sister to hang up on her. And then in that moment, my brother Muhammad rang me and said, listen, what's going on? I said, look, bro, I don't think I'll make it out of tonight. I said, there's something really bad going on in my stomach. The pain is excruciating. I'm bent over right now. I can't take it anymore. Well, then he rang up a friend of his name's Dr. Pran. And Dr. Pran is a very well-known cancer doctor. And Dr. Pran basically said to me, listen, champ, I know you can tolerate pain. I've seen you fight and I know you've been through some wars. So he goes, if you're telling me you're in pain, then you're in pain. So this is what I want you to do. Get in a car and go to the Norwest Private Hospital right now in Bella Vista. And I'm going to make sure that people are there to look after you. You will not be waiting. Well, then upon my arrival, I was in so much pain and my mind wasn't ticking correctly. He had told me that when you arrive there, tell them that Dr. Pran had sent you. Well, when I got there, I said to the lady, hi, my name is Billy Dib. And she goes, hi, Billy Dib, can you fill out this form? And I was shocked. I was like, oh, no, but I'm Billy Dib. She's like, that's fine. Can you fill out this form and come back and see me? Well, if I had just said to her that I'm here for Dr. Pran, she would have took me right away. But because I said I'm Billy Dib, but I wasn't thinking straight. I was in so much pain, Ben. And so then I filled out this form and then I made my way back to the counter. I basically crawled to the counter. I was bent over, Ben. There was something growing in my stomach and I could feel it. I gave it to her and then I said to her, could you just watch my stuff? I need to go outside. I'm going to be sick. And she's like, I'll get you a vomit bag. I said, no, I'm going to be sick right now. So I rushed outside and then next thing you know, I woke up on the floor and some man was slapping me on the face. Sir, wake up, sir. And I said to him, am I dead? And he goes, no, mate, you're alive. And I said, I think I'm dying. And he goes, no, mate, you're alive. Don't worry. He goes, you're alive. He goes, we're going to get you help. And then next thing you know, that lady was like, oh my God, that's Dr. Pran's patient. And then there was like 10 doctors around me and they rushed me into the emergency unit. And then I woke up hours later because obviously they had drugged me up and given me whatever, knocked me out. And then I woke up and there was Dr. Sanjay who asked me, he said, listen, what's going on? And I said, there's something growing in my stomach. And he goes, what makes you say that? And I said, I can feel something in the right side of my stomach growing. And he goes, I said to him, do you think I've got cancer? And he's like, no, I don't think so. This is not, like he goes, if you had cancer, you'd go undetected for years. You wouldn't know about it.
Right.
What you're saying is, you know, he goes, you might have an ulcer or something in your stomach. Well, they ended up running a few tests, endoscopies and scans and everything like that, and they found out that what I was telling them was correct. You know, I had this thing growing in my stomach. It was a 5 centimetre tumour. It was cancerous, and he said, look, we've cut out 9 centimetres of your colon to just try to clean up everything around it. And he basically said to me, you're cancer free, and, you know, just spend a week in hospital and let's get you strong again, and then you can go home, but don't be going to the gym for at least 6 months. You can't be taking any shots to the stomach or abdomen area for at least 6 months. And so after 7 days, I made my way home. And then, like, it was like Friday to Friday. And then on the following Friday, I was so sick again. You know, I was like vomiting and just really ill. And my wife was like, we need to take you back to the hospital. And I was like, please, it's the last place I want to go. Yeah. I'm begging you, don't take me to the hospital. Just take me home. I think I need to rest. She said, you've been resting a lot. You know, this wouldn't just happen if you were well. You know, I mean, you're obviously not well, please. You know, we don't want to lose you. Just do what I'm telling you. Let's go to the hospital. I said, look, I don't want to go. I was adamant. And she, in the end, she said, look, can I ring Dr. Pran or Dr. Sanjay and work out what's going on? So when she rang Dr. Sanjay, he said, look, I was hoping that I wasn't going to need to speak to you guys till Monday, because we had an appointment with him on Monday. This was all unfolding on Friday. And he goes, we've actually misdiagnosed your husband. He actually has non-Hodgkin's Burkitt lymphoma cancer, and it's a very aggressive cancer, and you need to rush him back to hospital now.
So when they found what they found in your stomach,
The colon, yeah.
and they cut that out, that was just the beginning of it.
Yeah, that was just the beginning. He had said to me, I don't want you to think about boxing for the next 6 months. And all I could think about was, you're crazy. You don't know who I am. I'll be back in 2 months. You know, so I was on the phone talking to Lou DiBella and making all these phone calls about this possible fight with George Kambosos. That's the fight that I was chasing. That's why I fought at lightweight, to try to get the ratings and stuff. And, Lou was all for it. And he's like, but are you sure you're okay? And I'm like, listen, the doctors can say whatever they want to say. I'll be back in a couple of months. Don't give the fight to anybody else. Well, I had plans, but God had better plans, And I think God was trying to give me a sign that you didn't need to pull the handbrake for a little bit,
And what did the doctors say when they gave you that diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma? How did they explain to you what that means?
Well, I basically said to the doctor, Sanjay, that I would not be doing any chemotherapy. This was after he found the colon cancer. I expressed that I wasn't interested in doing any chemo, and that I'd looked into it, and chemo wasn't the route that I was going to go down. So when I was diagnosed with this non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer, another doctor turned up, and his name was Dr. Bhattacharyan, Abir Bhattacharyan. And when he walked into the room, the way he dropped it was like a bomb. My mother was in the room with me, and my mother was basically saying to me, look, there's nothing. I've got a feeling we're going to be okay, Mum. Don't worry, don't stress. You're going to be all right. And I was like, just telling my Mum, I just don't want to leave my son behind. Like I'm grateful for the life that I've had, and I've experienced so much, and I've achieved so much, and I've lived the life that people dream of. But Mum, I don't want to leave my son. And she's like, and you're not. I'm telling you, you're not going to, there's nothing wrong. But I don't know why. There was something in my heart telling me there was something wrong. You just know. And so when Dr. Bhattacharyan walked in, he sat directly in front of me. And when he did, he just said, do you know the disease you have? I said, I really have no idea. Well, he said to me, this is a very fast-growing cancer, and you won't see 6 months. And I was like, 6 months of what? And he goes, you will be gone in 6 months. And I was like, I was shocked. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say. I just looked at him and I said, look, I don't think you understand. I have a 3-year-old son that's going to need me to walk him to school in 2 years' time. Like, what do you mean I've got 6 months? And he goes to me, if you don't do the chemotherapy and we don't get onto this fast, you'll be gone in 6 months. So I just pretty much said to him, look, is that what it takes? He said to me, that's what it takes. And I said, well, let's start yesterday. I'm ready to go. I said, I know that I said that I didn't want to do chemotherapy and that I was against it, but it's no longer about me anymore. I've got a son and a wife to look after, and they need me. So I'm going to need to do whatever I need to do to get through this. And he explained to me, this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever faced in your life. But you're young and you look strong at the moment, you'll get through it. You look pretty fit and you'll get through it. And I said, what I said to him in that moment was, that's such a protocol thing for you to say. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I heard that same protocol in 2015 when you guys told my wife, Sarah, that she was young and strong and would overcome her cancer, and she died. I said, but listen, this is different because I got a son and I need to survive. So please, I'm going to start the chemotherapy, but just do everything in your power to make sure that you help me survive this, please.
I think it's important to talk about Sarah and what happened there.
Yeah.
What did happen for those who don't know? You did lose your wife.
Yeah, Sarah was diagnosed with leukemia in 2015, and we went in and saw a doctor by the name of Dr. Hertzberg, and he pretty much gave us the spiel on what was going to be happening. And Sarah was going to be an inpatient, just like I was. I was an inpatient, and gave her the whole spiel about you're young, you're strong, you're fit, you'll be all right, you'll get through this, it'll be tough, but you'll beat it. And there's a few things that we need to look out for, and the three things are pancreas failure, heart failure, and blood clots. And so, things look to be going pretty well. And the one thing that I can say is that Sarah never complained about anything. And I now know that she was just putting on a brave face, because I've been through it myself now, Ben. And I know that cancer is painful and chemotherapy hurts. It really, really does. It's so daunting. And the fact that she went through what she went through, every time they would come to give me the chemotherapy, or I would shake I would shake. I was petrified, because I'd seen what she went through and the pain. But she never showed me anything about that this thing was painful. And she never told me that it makes you an insomniac. And she never told me that it kills your, your ability to eat, because that's what it does. This cancer has killed my ability to eat, to sleep, to drink. It's one of those things that it really kills everything good and bad in your body. And so Sarah put on such a brave face, but in the end, Sarah was complaining of headaches, and every single day she would pretty much ask me or her mum to buy her a iced coffee. And coffee has a way of thinning your blood. So when it would thin her blood, the headaches would go away. But she would ask me, I'd be massaging her head for hours on end. And so when Sarah one day was complaining of headaches, and I told the doctors, I said, listen, I'm not a doctor, but I know one thing. She's complaining about a lot of headaches. And I said, in boxing, if somebody's complaining about headaches, there's something going on in their brain. They've either got a blood clot or something's going on. Maybe you guys need to do a scan. And they were like, look, we can't scan her brain, because that's just not good for her. To put her in a machine and scan her is not a good idea. Well, one day she was just pretty much woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and pretty much asked me to leave the hospital, and I don't want you here today. And I was very confused, because her and I had discussed that you can get angry at everybody, but don't get angry at me, because I'm here to support you and stuff. But she was adamant she wanted me to leave the hospital. And I'll never forget that day, because the Dragons were playing, and I went home to watch the Dragons play, and I was at my brother Imad's place, and then her mum rang me at the end of the game and was crying in a frantic way, and basically said, could you make your way to the hospital? Sarah's suffered a really bad seizure. Well, I made my way to the hospital, and by the time I got there, Sarah was somewhat of a child. This girl who was close to being 21 years of age was now acting like a 5-year-old. She had no ability to communicate, no ability to tell you what was going on. She was just doing really funny things, and it was a very sad time in my life to see that this had happened to her. And they ended up doing a scan, and they did find a blood clot right in the center of her brain, and that became her demise. The blood clot in the center of her brain became her demise, and she ended up passing away, because that's just what happened, and it was a very, very tough time in my life. And I think that, for me, it's strange, because I feel like if she was still alive today, it would be so strange that she went through cancer in 2015, that, all these years later, 7 years later, her partner was going through cancer himself, which is just really strange. It's like 1 in a million sort of thing, right?
And did that frame your thinking as you were about to enter your own battle? You were starting chemo. Were you thinking about what had gone on then? Definitely.
It's just something that you can't wipe out of your brain. Even though today I'm married and I've got the most beautiful wife and the most beautiful son, and my wife Berry's such a supportive person and understands the journey that I've been on, it's so hard to get that out of your mind, Ben. It's so hard to just wipe that, that memory. It's just, I was there and I seen what she went through. And I remember the first day of chemotherapy when they were administering the chemo, she was screaming and telling them to stop. And then she broke out and things happened. And so, for me, when I started my chemotherapy, obviously I was shaking and I was very, very nervous. The minute that I got a headache, I thought, oh no, this is not good. Because I did get a headache.
Right.
And I got constant headaches, and I thought, oh my God, this is not a good sign. you just, it's just like, I couldn't help it, And then they tried to send somebody to talk to me. And the person that came to the room to talk to me, he made me even more nervous. So I asked him to leave the room, and I just pretty much said to him, look, because when I was in the hematology ward, which is the cancer ward, my brother hung up a T-shirt on the wall that said "Refuse to lose." And growing up as a kid and throughout my boxing career, that was the slogan that I used: "Refuse to lose." And it wasn't about refusing to lose a boxing fight. This was about refusing to lose to cancer, because I had this 3-year-old son who needed me. That was he's my motivation to survive, Ben. Him and my wife, my beautiful family and friends, they're the reason why I'm still here today, because this has been an extremely tough journey, and one that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. I pray every night and I ask God, I say, God, please don't give this disease to anybody. This is a really horrible disease. It's something that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. If I had any enemies, this is definitely one that I wouldn't wish upon them, So it is an extremely tough thing to go through, and I'm just sort of glad that I know that I'm not cancer-free, but I have finished my chemotherapy treatment, and I'm just praying to God that on March 6th, the result will say that I'm cancer-free.
So how long has that process been since the beginning of the chemotherapy to where we are now? It
all started in October, and October 13th, and I'm here today. And but I've definitely seen death on 4 or 5 occasions without fail. And I basically was in such a bad way that I actually asked God to take me, because I was just in such a bad way, Ben. I just couldn't handle the pain anymore. And I said, I'd throw my hands up in the air and say, God, if this is my time, please take me now, but look after my wife and son. Or if not, please, God, send somebody to help me, because I can't take this pain anymore. There were so many things that I was experiencing during my time in hospital that was so bad, like throat ulcers, because of there's a drug called methotrexate. Just the sound of it sends chills down your spine, methotrexate. It's such a horrible drug, and what it does is it basically strips you of everything. Your hair, you get ulcers all in your throat, your mouth. I'd never experienced pain like my bones were aching. Things that I'd never experienced before, like my legs, my calves. I felt like things were just deteriorating. And so, I asked God on multiple occasions. Even one night I rang my wife and said, look, I need to speak to you and Laith. And I even did a recording for my son, asking him to be a good boy and look after mum and just, don't box when you get older, Dad. Just, find something else and be a good boy, look after your mummy and always be kind to people. And like, I just did this message because I was like, there's no way that I can make it out of tonight. It's not humanly possible for a human to make it out of what I'm feeling. And when I rang my wife, I said, I need to tell you something. I'm not going to make it. And she said, look, I got to go. I'll speak to you tomorrow because we've got some people around. And I said, no, but Barry, can I talk to Laith? And she said, no. We're out at the moment. We've got people around us. And I said, but Barry, she said, no, I'll speak to you in the morning. And when she hung up the phone, I tried to call her back. She didn't answer, but I know what she was doing. She was not going to give me permission to give up. And so the following morning when I woke up, I was like, I'm still alive. I can't believe that I made it through this night. How is it even humanly possible? And one of the nurses coming to see me, and I was so upset with her. I said, I can't believe I gave you permission to kill me. I'm going to die. And she said to me, you're not going to die. We're going to give you the medication to keep you alive. Just trust me. And I said, you've killed me. Like, I feel like an alien. I'm dying. And she said to me, I need to tell you a story. And I was like, I don't want to hear it. She said, I need to tell you this story. Please listen to me. And she said to me, my husband died from cancer. And I was like, well, Auntie, that's not a very good story. You've already started on a bad note. And she said, no, hear me out. She said, my husband gave up. She goes, but the other day, I saw your son coming through the ward on the monitor, and I've seen the smile on your face and the way you lit up, and you were so excited to see your son. She goes, do you remember that? I said, yeah. And she goes, well, that's your reason to survive. So you fight your butt off. She goes, my kids were grown up. My kids were adults. My husband gave up. Don't give up on your son. He needs you. And in that moment, I was like, I can't die. I can't rob this child of the ability to go to school and tell people that his daddy was such and such, you know. And I can't believe how fast my son's grown up over the last couple of months. It's just been absolutely crazy. And the things that he says to me, you know, I've got my belt all laid out on his table at home. And just this morning he said to me, Daddy, thank you so much for winning these belts for me. And I was like, Dad, everything that I have in my life is for you. I need to be there for him, you know.
He knows what's going on, or he can sense some degree of what's happening?
He knows everything, Ben. It's just, that's why my wife said, like, this kid he just knows too much. Like, when my wife was on the phone and she discusses that, you know, my husband's got cancer, or she's talking to doctors and things, when people come over, my son says to him, my dad's got cancer. And then he'll say to me, Dad, show him your Spider-Man on your chest. And I said, Dad, why do I have this thing on my chest? And he said, Daddy, that's for the chemotherapy. That's for chemo, Dad. Like 3 years old. And he knows all about chemo, and he knows about... He even said to me one day, he said, Dad, I need to kiss you every day, Dad. And I'm like, why? And he goes, Dad, are you sick, Dad? And I said, Dad, I'm a little bit sick. And he goes to me, are you going to leave me, Baba? And I said, no, Dad. No. I'm going to fight, Dad. I'm going to fight, because that's what I do, Dad. I've been fighting my whole life, and Dad, I won't leave you, Dad. I promise you, Dad. I said, and if I do, Dad, then that's God's will, but my will is to be with you, Dad, you know? And every single night now, he's got this thing about, Dad, I need to kiss you, Dad. Can I sleep next to you, Dad? Dad, can I... He's become so attached, and now anytime I go anywhere, he starts to cry because he thinks I'm not coming back. And when I tell him I've got to go to the hospital and I need you to look after Mummy for a few days, he cries and he's like, Dad, the hospital's yucky. Please don't go there, Dad. I don't want you to go there, Dad. It's very hard for us, you know. It's just, it's so hard, you know, because, as I said, you know, chemo makes you sick. And, you know, when I'm vomiting and stuff, got this little kid who's 3 years old, said, Dad, should I get you a vomit bag? Dad, are you all right, Dad? And like a 3-year-old consoling you, like, it's just, that's not what I wanted for him, you know, not to see this at such a young age.
He's obviously been so important to where your head's been at, as has your wife and your family, but the support that's come from right around the globe, just looking at people who've reached out online and from all walks of life, you must have taken something out of all of that from around the world. Yeah,
look, you know, the amount of support's just been phenomenal. I can't believe it. I just, you know, I try to be as brave as I can, you know, when I post things on social media, because I feel like God has given me this platform, and people are watching very closely. And a lot of people who have got cancer have reached out to me and said to me, thank you for smiling through this, because you're giving me hope. But the support has been absolutely sensational, and one of the most supportive people has probably been Lou DiBella. The amount of support's been phenomenal. I can't thank people enough. Each and every single person on social media who's messaged me, you know, with support, it's just been phenomenal. I can't believe it.
What has that done for you? What has this process done for you, and the way that you feel about everyone in boxing and everyone that you've dealt with over the years? Because you're a great character, but you've had enemies, you've had fallings out, you've had a very colourful career. How do you look back on everything now with this new perspective?
You know, Ben, when I was sick in hospital during the first round of chemotherapy, something came over me and I was like, I need to end whatever's going on with anybody right now. So I pretty much cleaned the whole slate out. Anybody that I had a problem with, i.e. Liam Wilson was somebody that I had a problem with. So I contacted Liam, we spoke just via message and stuff like that. I even went as far as contacting somebody in 50 Cent's team. And his name was Tony. And Tony's a very close friend of Tim Cahill. But Tony works as 50 Cent's right-hand man. And I said to Tony, Tony, listen, I need you to do me a favour. And he said to me, anything for you, champ. And I said, I need you to tell 50 Cent that I forgive him. And I don't care that he robbed me. It's all good. I'm not concerned about the money anymore. And he's like, man, that takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing. And I was like, I just want you to tell him that for me. You know, I don't want to speak to him, but just tell him that I don't have no hard feelings anymore. And I pretty much reached out to everybody. I spoke to Jeff Fennick, and because I'd said a few things about Jeff, and I apologised to Jeff and just said, Jeff, forgive me. You know, of course, Jeff complied and was just saying, mate, just get better. We love you. You know, I mean, people have fallouts and things like that. So I was able to clear the air with everybody. And I could tell you right now that I don't have no enemies at all. Everything's cool. I even tried to reach out to George Cambosis, to be honest with you. I tried on multiple occasions with no luck, which is cool, but I was able to clear my conscience by doing that. I just wanted George to know that, look, you know, boxing is one of those things where, you know, you call people out and you do things and you say certain things, but at the end of the day, what you've achieved is fantastic. It's amazing, and you're in the history books forever, and it doesn't matter what anybody says, it doesn't matter what I say, what your next door neighbour says, or anybody says. You know, what you've achieved, and that's all that matters, you know what I mean? Whether we support you or we don't, you know, it's all good. But you know what? I have made a choice in my life now to basically just back everybody in Australian boxing. I don't want to be one of those guys who ever picks against an Australian. I'm going to back him no matter what. When Liam was fighting for the world title the other day, I was screaming through the TV. Yet when he was fighting Noine in his first fight, I was so happy to see him get knocked out. Just see, it's amazing how things, you know, reverse, and, you know, the roles reverse, and I don't have that in my heart anymore. I don't want to see anybody in any pain. I don't want to see people going through things that they don't deserve to go through. And for me now, the only thing that I cherish in life is time. You know, that's all I've asked God for. I've begged God on numerous occasions for time, because that's all I want. I don't want flashy cars. I don't want flashy homes. I don't want millions of dollars. What God's given me, I'm grateful for, and all I want God to give me is a little bit of time to be there for my son and my wife. I just want to watch my son grow, and other than that, I don't want anything else, Ben.
People can probably Google the 50 Cent stuff if they want to get a bit of background on what happened there. But when you were doing that, clearing the slate, were you preparing yourself for potentially losing this fight, or were you preparing yourself for the next stage and who you want to be?
Well, look, I'd pretty much, you know, surrendered to the fact that I had cancer. I'm not one of those people who gives up, Ben. I never have been, you know. I've always been very determined to achieve great things in life. But the first thing I did was I just surrendered and said, God, I know you have a plan for me, and whatever your plan is, I accept. All I can ask you for is just for a little bit of time. And, you know, when I was in the hospital for the first 28 days, Ben, I hadn't seen my son properly in 28 days. And in the end, on the 26th day, I cried so much, and I just basically got on my knees and I said, God, please, I'm begging you. I'm just begging you, please. Just give me some time with my son. Just give me a week or a few days. I'm begging you, God, please. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And one of my brother-in-laws was at the hospital, and he was trying to console me, and I was like, I just want time with my son. I'm just begging you, God, please. And at that point, Ben, if I show you what I look like, I was back down to featherweight. I was so skinny and gaunt, and I looked like I was making weight for a fight. But this cancer had taken everything away from me. Well, 2 days later, Dr. Bhattacharyan walked in and said, listen, I've got some good news. And I said, what is it? And he said, you haven't had a fever in 3 days, so I'm going to let you go home tomorrow. And I was like, no. You said if I don't get a fever for 3 days, you'll let me go home. I said, today's my wife's birthday. Please, I need to go home today. And he said, well, look, we need to do a lumbar puncture for you, and we need to do a few things. He goes, but I'm going to do my best to get you out of hospital tonight. He goes, we'll probably be around 5 or 6 o'clock, but I'll get you home today, I promise. So I just basically, I went home and I sat on the couch and I told my wife, I said, listen, could you go past my mum and dad's place and I've got a gift there for you, you know? And she's like, oh, what is it? Can I get it tomorrow? I said, no, you need to go get it today, please. And so she turned up to my mum and dad's place, and I was sort of on the couch around the corner. As you walk through my mum and dad's hallway, you got to sort of turn the corner to come to the lounge room. And when she saw me, she's like, oh my God, can I hug you? And we both just broke down. And then my son, he couldn't work out what was going on. Why was Daddy crying so much? And why is Mummy crying? And I just grabbed him and said, Dad, I love you so much. And basically God answered my prayer, you know, and I got to spend 2 weeks with my son before I had to go back in the hospital, which was just the most amazing 2 weeks.
I've seen all the social media stuff you've been putting up, and clearly you're trying to look like everything's okay as much as you can. You're smiling, you're trying to look relaxed. I can tell that you're tired and that you are struggling even today, but you're putting on a brave face. How does it feel? You mentioned looking at your gaunt body like you were trying to make weight. You've lost your hair. You're someone who is very proud of their appearance. You're always flashy. You look the part in the ring. You look great, and now you look sick. How does that feel? Seeing yourself like that, seeing your hair gone, and knowing what that is all about.
It's very hard, Ben. It's been very, very hard, and the fact that sometimes people don't even recognize you. They're like, are you Billy Dib? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, I got cancer, you know. And they're like, when, how, you know, like, the one thing that I'll never understand is that, see, I've never had a staring problem. If I've seen somebody that was sick, I never stared at them. I always just said, you know, I hope they get better. I always pray for people. When I see somebody that's sick, I always make a prayer, and I ask God to just make them better. And so that I've noticed that since I've been sick, people have got this really big staring problem, you know, and they stare at you and stuff. And I understand, it's okay. People are curious, but it does hurt, you know. And I have to, like, when I first got out of hospital and my hair was starting to just fall out, it was, I just couldn't believe it, what I was starting to look like. I was so gaunt. I'd walked into the hospital at 68 kilos and walked out of there at like 57 and a half. I was skin and bone. I was so gaunt, and the way that I looked was very sick. Even right now, I weigh about 60 kilos, but that's all right. You know, it's okay. I'm gonna get better, Ben. You know, it's like I have no choice but to get better. I take every day, one day at a time. I just take it one day at a time. I don't try to be Superman or anything like that. I move slow at the moment. That's one thing that this cancer has done to me, is that it's taken my ability to be able to exercise. Now walking up a set of stairs feels like my heart's going to burst. I'm so unfit, and to be where I am today and where I was, it does hurt. You know, it does hurt because I've always been so ambitious and driven. But, you know, today I've got new ambitions and new goals, and I just pray that God allows me to be cancer-free on March 6th. That's just all I ask from God. I want to be cancer-free, and my goal moving forward in life would be to use my platform to inspire others to overcome their sicknesses and overcome their adversities in their life, and just give people hope. I'll never be an advocate for cancer. I'll never be an advocate for chemotherapy, but what I will be an advocate for is that through faith, love, friendship and support, you can get through this. And that's been the one thing that's helped me get through this. Those few things, you know, as I said to you, Ben, the support's been amazing, but my faith in God has definitely helped me get to this point.
You're still going through some struggles. We were meant to chat earlier in the week, but you had to go back to hospital. Where are you at with everything at the moment, physically, and what are the doctors saying ahead of this all-important date that you have in March?
Right now, as I sit with you right now, my hemoglobins is, it's so funny because now I've learned all about these things about cancer. So now I know your white blood cells, your hemoglobins and all these things. Your hemoglobins are very important. It's your red blood cells and stuff. I'm at like 61, which is dangerously low. It means that I am susceptible to catching an infection. And infections and cancer don't go very well. If you catch an infection, basically you could die. And so my white blood cells the other day were at 0.0, which is not a good sign. And this is something that happens due to the chemotherapy. And because I've been going through the chemotherapy, I've basically got nothing left. And so the other day I was asked to come to the hospital for a blood transfusion. After doing a blood test, I was pretty much called by the doctor and said, look, you're on the verge of having a heart attack. He goes, and it's just going to come upon you with no warning. You need to get to the hospital ASAP. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, do you feel okay? And I was like, I'm extremely tired. And he's like, yeah, you're on the verge. You need to get to the hospital as quick as possible. When I got there, he was like, we need to give you 2 bags of blood and we need to give you some platelets and everything. He goes, your bone marrows and that are very low. We need to boost it up. Well, when they gave me these bags of blood and the platelets, I ended up catching an infection. And my temperature hit 39 degrees at around 5 o'clock. And my mum became very concerned and she rang the hematologist and he was like, listen, rush him back to the emergency right now before we lose him quick. So we got in the car. I was in a very, very bad way. I was freezing cold. It was like 40 degrees outside, but I was freezing, Ben. I was shaking and I needed a blanket and everything. And when I got to the hospital, they basically got me through and took me up to the ward and just basically started pumping me with antibiotics to try to bring the temperatures down. And I spent like maybe 4 or 5 days in the hospital again. And that's the hardest thing, and every time I go to hospital, I'm away from the one person that I want to be with, and that's my son. It's just so hard, and it's just like, I understand there's a process, and even sometimes being around my son in the state that I'm in is not a good thing because kids carry things, and sometimes my son sneezes and he coughs and whatever, and it's just things that little kids go through, and that could be affecting me. And I need to be very, very careful, and I understand that. And like I said, Ben, it's just been a battle. But the one thing that I need to do now is just be extremely careful. I've got not long to go till the 6th of March. I need to try to stay out of harm's way. I've been told that when I'm in a busy place to wear 2 masks. Try not to go to super busy places. Don't go to shopping centres, which I don't go to. Try not to be in crowds. But if you do, make sure you wear a double mask. I'm just trying to, as they say, tie my camel, It's an Islamic quote that we say is that, you got to be smart, tie your camel. By tying your camel means you need to just be careful.
You mentioned that now you have new ambitions, you've got new goals. What are they now, aside from the result that we all want on March 6th?
My goal is to basically become one of the best keynote speakers in the world. My goal is to travel the world, talk about the journey that I've been through, what I've faced, the trials and tribulations that I've been through and how I've overcome them, and just try to motivate people to overcome theirs. I think so many people in this world are going through so many situations, and as you know, I'm good. You know, I'm good compared to some other people, Ben. You know, a lot of people are going through some really bad times in life, and I just want to use my platform and who I am to inspire people to overcome their adversities. You know, I want to use my autobiography that's hopefully going to come out on March 14th to basically take the nuggets out of my journey and use that to inspire people. You know, there's been great speakers around the world like Anthony Robbins and Tony Robbins and Inky Johnson, some of the speakers that I've looked up to, and that's what I want to do. I just want to travel the world and basically inspire people to be better.
You're in a bigger fight now, but are you comfortable with the fact that you probably won't box again? Are you comfortable with the fact that your boxing career is at an end?
Look, I think I've had an amazing run, Ben. Looking back at some of the amazing things that I've achieved, and after reading the book and writing about some of the amazing things that I've achieved, like I've fought in every major city. I've fought in the most amazing venues on some of the most amazing undercards, you know, and I reached the pinnacle of boxing, and the pinnacle of boxing is to become champion of the world. And I was surrounded by some of the greats and got to do it in front of them and show my ability, and times I shined and times I didn't. But that's life, you know, sometimes you win some and you lose some, and I've had an amazing run. Boxing is something that will forever be in my blood. I'm grateful to the sport of boxing for giving me what it gave me. At this stage, as you know, my goal is to just survive cancer. But maybe one day I might have an exhibition somewhere. Maybe.
When you were boxing, the words we wanted to hear were "and you" and "Billy Dib." Yeah. What do we want to hear on March 6th? What are the words that your doctor has to say for everyone in global boxing who is on this journey with you?
I think the most important thing that he could say to me is that I've got some great news for you. You're in remission. I mean, that would just... I think that would probably be, you know, one of the happiest times of my life, because it would mean that, I mean, nothing's guaranteed, but it would mean that I'm going to be around for my wife and my son. To be able to hear them words from him, to say to me, "Hey, Billy, you've done a great job, man. You went through the wars, but we're here today and you're in remission." That would be, I'd be so grateful to God, you know. I really don't want to die, Ben, you know what I mean? I don't want to die. But I understand, you know, like, I'm just grateful for time, you know, because some people, Ben, they didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to their loved ones. They die in a car accident, or they get taken by in a tragic way. But God's given me the ability to tell my loved ones that I love them, my mum, my dad, my siblings, my wife, my friends, my cousins, and most importantly, my son, who I tell him that I love every single day, maybe 1,000 times. I said, "Dad, you know I love you, Dad." Even if he's not listening, I said, "Dad, I love you, Dad." That would, if I could just hear those words, that you're in remission, because chemotherapy really hurts, Ben, man. It does. And if he was to say to me, "You're not in remission," and I got to go through it again, I don't know if I could do it.
Well, Billy, we all hope that you get those words, and you've got everyone supporting you, and we're so proud of everything you've done through your whole life, your boxing career, but particularly the way that you've fought in recent times. You mean a lot to a lot of people, and it's terrible that you've had to go through this, but if anyone's going to overcome it, it's you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much, man. A lot of people are saying that to me. They're like, if anyone can beat this, it's you, and I know I've had to be strong because to overcome this, you have to be positive. And I've just tried to remain as positive as I can. And even my father said to me yesterday, he said, listen, I know it's getting tough. And I know there's been some tough days, but let's keep going with that positivity because it's the reason why you're here today. You're being positive. And he goes, and Dad, all I want you to do is just be positive, please. Don't give up, because if you give up, it's going to spiral down the hill. And he goes, and I don't want it to do that. He goes, just remain just like you were when you wanted to fight, when you were fighting. And my dad's such a positive person. He even said to me, he said, Dad, I want to see you have one more fight. I want to see you back in the ring one more time. So come on, beat this so I can see you back. He goes, I actually want to physically see you have one more fight. Whether he really means that or not, maybe he's just trying to, motivate me to just overcome this, because he knows how much I love the sport of boxing and he knows how much I love competing. But I know he's just been supportive, it's been one hard journey, Ben. It really has.
I'd love to see you have one more fight too. I had the great privilege of calling it when you won the world title. I've been ringside for so many of your fights, but if you could do it one more time for us, Billy, that would be really special. But first and foremost, win this fight for us.
Yeah, no doubt, Ben. That's the plan. Just beat this cancer and just try to rebuild my strength and just get something back, just try to pull myself together a little bit. That would mean the world to me. Thanks
so much for being so open and for coming to have a chat, because we've been so worried about you. It's good to see you can still smile, and we'll all be hoping for that good result on March 6th.
Thank you so much, and to the Australian public and all the people around the world, I can't say thank you enough. Honestly, I've read each and every one's messages. During this time of cancer, I've had nothing but time in the hospital, so I've been able to go through everyone's messages. I've tried to respond to everybody. Your messages do not go unseen, and your support has been phenomenal and definitely helped me get to this point. I'm just grateful that there's so many people around the world praying for me, because I know that's definitely making a difference.
Thank you very much. That is Billy Dib. He's on quite a journey, and we hope that there's some real positives still to come. Thanks for watching, for listening. I'm Ben Damon, and I'll see you at the fights.